I'm anxious to start on it. Yes.
It'll be really good. So, all right, so let's get started. I'm going to mute everyone, with the exception of myself here. And today we're going to talk about the topic of fasting. So let me just try and get rid of that over there. I got to put this down first. I'll move it over there. Okay. So we decided to talk about fasting today because it is just gaining so much steam. Everywhere we turn, Dr. Connors and I were learning more and more about fasting. There's just tons of research out there about it. And what we get a little nervous about is that sometimes when things get really popular, such as, new trends, ketogenic fasting, and all kinds of different things throughout time, is that they become what's known as a fad. And then people, especially healthcare practitioners, are quick to dismiss fads. So I want to make sure that we do a webinar, a Zoom call about fasting so that we can definitely address some of the truths about it. And then we're also going to go into the myths about it, because that's important too, to sort that out as well. So we'll go through that. And if you guys have any questions, we'll save them for the end. So what are we going to learn today? So we're going to learn the truth about the fed versus fasted states and how insulin and glucose work together, fasting and metabolism. We're going to learn about eating frequent mini meals or snacks and how they relate to fasting and the insulin and glucose, fasting and gut health. We're going to talk a little bit about time restricted eating. And I did write an article and I posted on Facebook about that. So if you want some more information, deeper information on that, you can go to the Facebook page. But I'm going to cover the gist of the time restricted eating. And we're also going to mention the fasting mimicking diet, because at the clinic, some people are put on the fasting mimicking diet, and we're just seeing a lot of really good stuff with that. I'm actually attending a really big conference in Florida tomorrow, and one of the topics is intermittent fasting and the fasting mimicking diet. So a lot of really good research behind that. So before we get started on talking about fasting, I want to put out the disclaimer that fasting is definitely not for everyone. We have people that are in a state where they really need to be eating, and sometimes that's called cachexia, where their body's in that state where fasting would not be a good idea, good strategy for them. So definitely, if you want to double check with us at any point, if this would be a good thing to implement, especially if you're diabetic. So people with diabetes, I really prefer that they work one-on-one with a practitioner, such as myself. I have walked people through this, but really, we have to be really careful with people with diabetes issues because of the blood sugar issues, and it can be dangerous if we drop our blood sugar too low if you have diabetes. So I'm just going to throw that disclaimer out there before we get started. But for most people, we get to be able to fast, and it's really extremely good for our bodies. So your body is designed to smoothly transition between two different and opposing states, the fed and the fasted. In the fed state, insulin's elevated, and this signals your body to store excess calories in your fat cells. In the presence of insulin, the burning of fat is stopped, and while the body burns glucose instead from your last meal. In the fasted state, insulin is low. The body starts mobilizing stored fat from your fat cells and burning this fat for energy. So this is not at all about weight loss. I just want to say right now is that a lot of this, I do talk about burning fat, and I'll mention that. But really the goal is not to just look better in your swimsuit that's coming up this summer. The goal is to be healthy, to be less inflamed, to have your body systems working optimally. So although I'm going to talk a lot about fat burning, it's really goes way beyond, just that mechanism. So really, in the United States, and actually, not just us, I won't blame us, but just the world, I would say we're spending less and less time in that fasted state. So, unfortunately, that's not good for our bodies. So, our bodies and our cells spend less and less time then mobilizing and burning the stored body fat for energy. And the glucose burning pathways are way overused. And eventually, what happens is insulin's high all the time, because insulin is that hormone that will escort glucose into the cell. So it's high all the time, and the body avoids burning stored fat, relying mostly on glucose. And over time, this chronic exposure to so much insulin also leads to insulin resistance, where the body secretes even more insulin in response to the fed state. And then chronic insulin resistance, it's the cause of metabolic syndrome. So that's obesity, abdominal fat storage, high triglycerides, low HDL, or the good cholesterol, and the elevated glucose, with eventually resulting in type 2 diabetes. And I was reading and researching for this talk, and I came across a statistic that said 1 in 12 humans on Earth currently have full-blown type 2 diabetes, while 35% of adults and 50% of older adults have metabolic syndrome or pre-diabetes. And I'm like, whoa, wow, what is going on here? So, you really look at the ramifications, the really negative ramifications that we've got ourselves into in a society that, that eats in the patterns that the way that we're eating right now is the frequent meals and the high carb meals that we're just not getting into that fat burning, and that takes away from the glucose burning. So we know that fasting is good. It has a lot of research behind it. I'm going to mention some of that, but it's hard. It's really hard to start fasting. I remember about 15 years ago, I was in college, and the Atkins diet got really popular. And at this time, I was eating Fruity Pebbles and white bread, Wonder Bread, and I was what you'd call a sugar burner. So I really had not used any of my fat burning pathways, because that's the way I ate. That's just what I, had access to. And I really guess I didn't really know any better. So when I tried to start on even just the Atkins diet, so just stop burning the glucose and get into the fat burning, I thought I was going to die. I felt like death. And I remember I was out and about, and I thought, I have to pull over and get a Coke. So I pulled over at the gas station after being on cheese and steak and hamburgers for a couple of days, got a Coke, and I felt immediately better. And that's a really bad sign. It's a bad sign if you have problems going low carb and you feel terrible. That's just a red flag that you probably need to get out of your sugar burning state and get more fat adapted. So I put down lower carb diet because that in our clinic, we don't have any quote unquote protocols. Everyone is different. Everyone in their metabolism and their genetics and how they handle fats and carbs and proteins, everyone's a little bit different. So we work really hard, and we're very specific about prescribing a diet, because again, it's not that everyone should go vegan or everyone should go ketogenic. That's not the answer. So really what we're talking about is fasting. And then when you're not fasting, the food that you're eating is going to be different for everyone, but the fasting is the same. But what can help you, so this slide is about what can help me fast, is that if you're not having these high carb components in your diet that are spiking your insulin. So if you're choosing things that are lower in carb, you're not going to have as big of an insulin spike. And then it's going to be easier, because we know we get that insulin spike when we eat high glucose foods. Then our insulin just comes out, gobbles up that glucose, and we actually can get a drop in glucose, so we feel kind of yucky. So really kind of starting, if you're going to start out, just think more. And if you're already eating this way, awesome. If you're not, it is a good strategy to go a little bit lower carb. So just try and start making choices that are a little bit lower carb, so you're kind of flattening out your blood sugar. Exercise definitely can help with implementing fasting. Just gets your cells more they're more sensitive to glucose. So exercise is always a good idea. But again, it's different for everyone. Not everyone can exercise. Avoiding processed foods is really important for that same reason, that we just want to get our bodies not so that it's such a shock when we're trying to go into fat burning mode. And the best advice I can give anyone is that practicing this is how you get good at it. Like anything, it's that you start slow, you really respect your body and how it's processing and the signs it's giving you, and you really start off really slow. So if that means, stopping eating after dinner and then getting till 8 o'clock in the morning, and if that's different for you, if that's a little bit more of the what's called the time restricted eating, start there. Just try and start pushing it out. And it's a metabolic workout, and that's what the name suits it, is that we're trying to extend the time that we can stay fasted, stay utilizing fats, because it's extremely healthy. It has a lot of really good benefits. But before I go into those benefits, I know where my mind goes. I always question things. I kind of got in some trouble in high school and in college because I was always questioning, like, well, what does that mean? And what does that mean? And if I had anything in my mind that I was questioning, I couldn't quite pay attention to what they were talking about, because I'm thinking about, wait a minute, what about this? So what I want to do is I want to clear up some of the fasting myths, and then we can talk about all the benefits. So then you can go, oh, okay, all right, I get that. Understand that that's a myth. And then you'll go, oh, okay, that makes much more sense with the benefits. So the first one is eating mini meals and snacks. So eating frequently, this is just short and sweet. Eating frequently is not good for you, period. So it's not like a blanket statement, but because there's people with diabetes and there's people, who are in that cachectic state and they need to eat, they need those calories, but eating and these frequent insulin surges, it's really not good for you. It doesn't have a whole lot of benefit in the scientific research. So when I, as a doctor here, Dr. Halderman, I have to eat very frequently, else I just feel terrible. Do you know what that says to me? That's the red flag that's waving that says, well, then you need to start learning how to fast, because you're probably just burning sugar and you need to be more fat adapted, especially with cancer, because it's, the Warburg effect, it loves to gobble up glucose. That's its preferred pathway. So that's short and sweet, is that eating frequently, like those nibbles and everything, that's really hard on your body. You don't ever give it a break. People say to me, well, I can't fast because my metabolism really decreases. Well, guess what? That's not true at all. The research would say your metabolism actually increases when you're fasting. So I always tell people that, when you're let's say you're fasting and you fast breakfast and lunch and dinner, you're actually having breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and your body's feasting on your fat cells. So it's going, oh, okay, you're not giving me glucose. I'm going to go find some fat cells to chew on. And that's why we're able to sleep at night and, not die in our sleep of starvation, because the body's not stupid. It goes, oh, okay, well, we're not going to burn sugar, so I'm just going to go munch on that fat. I really think, and I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, but I really believe, and so does Dr. Connors, that's what, if you have that waking up in the middle of the night, especially around 3 in the morning, that can be because you are not fat adapted, that you are not smoothly transitioning the fasted and fed states, that you really need to work on not being such a sugar burner. So really, you can give people sleep aids and melatonin, but the first thing I do is we look at their diet, and I have them start tracking their blood glucose, and I have them start really restricting down their time that they're eating, and that helps a lot. The next myth is that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. No, it's not the most important meal of the day. And it is okay if you can make it through without breakfast. Actually, breakfast time, when you wake up, your insulin levels are actually quite low. And most people are actually just starting to enter the fasted state, because it takes 12 hours after eating your last meal to actually get into that fasted state. So that's really a great time to just keep on going. Now, again, let's put the disclaimer out there. It's not for everybody. I don't want you passing out. I don't want you pushing yourself to the limit here, but really just keeping this in mind of the health benefits is a really good idea. So your gut health. So this is important too. Gut's the foundation of health. So when we're eating and snacking all the time, from the time we get up, we have a coffee at 6 a.m. and we put some creamer in it, and stevia is okay, but we're still putting the cream in there, and then we're having something for breakfast. We're having an egg, and then at 10 o'clock we're having a protein bar. Your digestive system needs a break. It needs time to repair. It needs time to detoxify. So that really plays into your liver as well. And we're looking at fasting in the research will cut your inflammation. So whether we like it or not, and I've said this before, every time we eat, we're getting an immune response. We're putting something foreign into our body. Our body has to decide if it's friend or foe. We're challenging. Sometimes we think that, let's say, for instance, it's okay to have gluten, and then we eat it and your body is really not quite sure, and then it can cause inflammation. So giving your body a break can help to kick on what's called that autophagy, and that's that cleaning. So that's the cellular waste debris, the old proteins, everything in from the old collagen in your knees to in your brain. The autophagy kicks on to really clean that out, and fasting really helps push that pathway. So now some of the proven benefits of intermittent fasting. Promotes fat loss. And again, that's really not the point. I really want everyone to be healthy and feel really good. And I want everyone's cancer not to be fed. And those are really what we're looking for as practitioners, but it does promote fat loss. Improves insulin sensitivity, improves your metabolism, starves the bad bacteria in the colon, promotes longevity, improves hunger. So there's a researcher by the name of Dr. Jason Fung, and he really does a lot of research on the cravings behind intermittent fasting and the fasting with cravings, and that really the best thing you can do is just completely go cold turkey with some of these foods that you crave, not to have just little tiny, like, oh, I love bread, I can't give up bread, and then just to have a little bit of bread here and there. He said that's like giving a heroin addict who's in remission just a little bit of heroin. It just doesn't work. So the benefit of the fasting is to just break those cravings that aren't good for you really, really fast. It can improve mindful eating, appreciation of your food. And we know that fasting is biblical as well. So that plays a really big role in this. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. It can improve the eating patterns, our brain function, our immune system, fights cancer cells, those that are glucose dependent, can reverse diabetes, improve fatty liver, improves neurodegenerative disorders, reduces inflammation, improves cellular regeneration and repair, improves lipid parameters, normalizes blood pressure, improves allergies, and it has rest for your digestive organs. So just a ton of really positive effects of doing something that's really simple and free. So time restricted eating. So this is different than intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting, I will say, is an umbrella term. So intermittent fasting does not have a hard fast rule of 12 hours, 18 hours. It just means an extended amount of time that you are taking a break from food. So time restricted eating is something that cancer patients, that we're trying to get cancer patients to commit to, not just an intermittent fast here and there, but that we're restricting down our eating time to a specific window. So it's really important because, again, we don't enter the fasted state, we don't get that benefit until about 12 hours. So if you finish eating at 7 p.m., when you get up in the morning and you're going to eat breakfast, you're just starting that positive effect. So ideally, in an ideal world, and I probably adhere to this 80% of the time at least, but I had to practice. it would be stopping eating after dinner and then slowly implementing in. Now I'm more of like, okay, let's get this done. Let's just start at 12 p.m. But some people, like I said, they're going to have to just kind of broaden the window out. So, and try and get to that 6-hour window is really ideal. Why I'm really a proponent of this is because of the research. It's apparent, it's right there. So in my article on time restricted eating, the research will show that, if in these time restricted fed mice, okay, it's mice, but we're looking at, humans, and but they have published this, that the tumors won't grow as much as if the mouse restricts the eating time. And what's cool about that is that if you take all the food you're going to eat in one day, typically, let's just say you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you have some snacks in there, and you put it on a table, and you eat your normal amount of food. So you ate that food from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you take that same amount of food and you restrict it to about 8 to 6 hour window, the research is showing that even though you're not changing the calories, you're not changing the content, that you are going to be losing weight. And that makes sense from everything I just said, because once you get past that 12-hour and you're into the fat adaptation, where your body's having your fat cells for lunch and it's happy about it, then you're going to have those positive effects, and the inflammation's going to go down, and those markers of inflammation you can see in the research, they go down, and that's really exciting. Not only that, with the cancer side of it, is that you get the improved glucose metabolism, improved lipid profiles, cholesterol gets better, you increase your lean muscle mass, decrease fat mass, and decrease fatty liver, and you get favorable gene expression. I will say that a lot of people, they say, I don't want to fast because I don't want to lose lean muscle because it just gobbles up my muscles. So that's another myth as well, is that it's not going to go after your lean muscle. You have a lot of other protein that's hanging around, and your body's really smart. It was made by God. It knows it needs to go after the old proteins that hanging around that's not good for you, that needs to be cleaned up, and it will go after that. So the fasting mimicking diet. So I don't want to reinvent the wheel here. So Dr. Connor's webinar on this is really, really good. We really like the fasting mimicking diet because, again, of the research, because it's showing that if you do these 5 days on the fasting mimicking diet per month for 3 months, that you'll have a positive effect in a couple of different markers, and those effects can be seen down the line, even when you're not necessarily doing the fasting anymore. The data is saying that you get those effects long after. So we're proponents of it. There is a concern that if you go over 24 hours of fasting and you have cancer, that you're going to kick on a higher amount of growth hormone. And if you have cancer, that's not necessarily a good thing. So I would say, Dr. Connors and I were having a conversation about this today, that we don't want to go over 24 hours on a water fast if we have cancer because of that growth hormone issue. We'd rather have you do the fasting mimicking diet. And again, just look up on the Zoom call or on the Facebook page, just look up fasting mimicking diet, and you'll see Dr. Connor's webinar on this. I'm about to embark on this, so wish me luck on the diet. I typically fast 24 hours once or twice a week. But that took me some time, going from Fruity Pebbles all the way to that. It did take me some time. So, but I really see the benefit. I'm sleeping better. I talked to you guys about how I track my sleep with it's called an Aura Ring. And the fasting, on the days I fast, I get much more deep sleep. And I've been getting a lot more deep sleep just because I think I'm more fat adapted in general. I'm not doing a whole lot of high carbs at all, and just helping my body have that smooth transition. So if there's any questions on that fasting mimicking diet, we'll talk about it after the webinar's over too. So this is new. So what we're going to do, because we're excited about fasting. We think that, again, everyone, we don't give out blanket statements, but guess what? This is one you're going to hear from us, is that the time restricted eating, really tightening up that window, is good for everybody, pretty much. that across the board. But the intermittent fasting, okay, that's a little bit different. That's on case by case. But if you are able to do some fasting, if you feel comfortable, if you want to start, we're going to start doing community fasting. And this is actually gaining popularity in some other groups. And so we thought, well, why not? We have an awesome community. We all love each other. We all support each other. We're on Facebook. And so every Sunday after dinner, we're going to start fasting as a community. We're going to start sometime after dinner. Now that's different for everyone. And we're going to have the Facebook support on there. So we'll have prayer requests. So it's going to be a day of prayer and fasting. And if you can get to, from dinner to 8 o'clock in the morning, and that's as far as you can go, well, that's awesome. And, so we're not saying that we're going to go, everybody after dinner has to start for a 24-hour fast. That's not what we're saying at all. It's just a day to reflect, to really support each other, to really come together. And, as a community, we're so happy that we can support each other, that we know that we're in this together. And we think this is a really good way to connect more. And again, so we'll start that off this Sunday. I'll write on there, and I'll write some prayers that I would love for you guys, whether you're fasting or not, to help me out with and for the clinic. So look for that. And we're excited about it. So I'm going to open this up to questions. Okay, guys, you have the floor. Does anybody have any questions?
Dr. Kelly, I have one. I tried the time-restricted diet. I've been on it maybe real strict, following it real close for about a week. And I'm getting tired.
Oh,
and then I'm feeling that I can't get all my food in to that window.
Okay. So do you own a glucometer, something you could check your blood glucose with?
No.
Okay. So that really helps to guide you to see where you are with blood glucose and how your body's responding to the different diet. Now, it could be a little bit of you're trying to get into more fat adaptation. So your body's like, I really like burning sugar, because that can last a while. Or it can be, like you said, you're just not getting in the right amount of calories. I mean, a lot of people, we do not want, we don't want them fasting, or we don't want them doing time restricted eating and necessarily losing a ton of weight. So we don't really, and it's really the weight that needs to be lost. So we're talking about like the extra pounds. If you take a bodybuilder and you do time restricted eating, which they do, they're not going to lose a ton of weight. So really it's more for the extra. So what I would do is I would start tracking your blood glucose, and I would also start widening out your window. You may have gone a little bit too fast. So just kind of give yourself 2 extra hours to eat and see how you do with that.
Okay, what did you call that? What?
A glucometer, just a blood glucose measure.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Halderman, if you're doing the time-restricted eating, is it okay to drink dandelion tea or coffee or something in the morning?
So the research is a little bit fuzzy on this, but most of the science says that coffee, tea, water, and they go as far as saying that like a sparkling water sweetened with like stevia is actually okay. And I would say this, as what I have done, and I know that people are different in what will spike their blood sugar. So sometimes, as strange as it sounds, that unsweetened coffee, like just completely normal coffee or tea, will actually cause a bump in glucose. And so you could just test yourself. So you could take prick your finger, see what your blood glucose is at, have your glass of tea, and then do it like about 5 minutes later, and then see what it's at. And if it's about the same, you're good.
Okay.
Good question.
Okay. Almond milk, is that okay in the coffee?
So almond milk will actually it'll stop the mechanism fasting. So you'll go back into the
Okay.
fed state. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. Good question.
And it's 16 to 18 hours. Is that ideal?
Yep. That
Okay.
is correct. Yep. And again, everybody's a little bit different. So there's people who are like, I can't afford to lose another pound. So then if you're doing a 6-hour window, but you're losing weight, then you got to go, okay, well, maybe my body will be better in an 8-hour. Try and stabilize, out where you are.
Right. Okay.
Does anybody have any other questions other than the fasting and the time restricted eating?
This is Deb again. Can I ask a question about the fasting mimicking diet?
Sure.
I have a histamine problem, and every food, everything that the ingredients they have on those and that is histamine. They say I shouldn't be eating that stuff, but I tried. I've done 3 months, and then waited 3 months and did another 3 months, and it seems to be okay. But when I get done, I seem to want to gobble everything.
Okay. Yeah, and I would say that if you're not, so you're doing okay. You're not having a huge histamine response when you're actually on the diet. Is that what you're saying, Deb?
Not yes and no, but I've heard people saying they have like the second or third day they have a Herxmeyer kind of reaction. Same thing here, but nothing I can't get through.
Okay, and then when you go back to eating, you're starving to death.
When I go back to eating, it's like, give me food.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear ya. I think that's called normal. So, I think the best thing to do would be, it's important to ease your way back into, especially high carb things or even just carbs. So start off with a really an avocado, and then give yourself an hour, just kind of, and then some coconut oil if you can. Really try and just remind your body that this is the state we want to be in. And so don't go back to carbs as much as that sounds really, really good. I think that's where people crash. It's actually happened to my husband. He went on a fast and then he was starving to death. So he ordered pizza.
Yeah. That's it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
She died.
Yeah.
I think she did. Oh.